bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle.
Hello everybody, and I do want to ride my bicycle too, but unfortunately the weather has been a little cold this spring here on Long Island, but I'm hoping that next weekend was supposed to be around 60, so it'll be nice to get out there and enjoy some fresh air on a bike. As you can probably already tell, the topic of today's video will be slightly different from some other videos we made in the past, and today's topic is the e-bikes. I couldn't believe myself when I researched the background of the e-bikes, but apparently the very first e-bike was patented around 1890s to like 1900s. Different websites had different information, but they were kind of around the same time. I just couldn't believe myself how long they've been around. Now, I'm going to keep this video a little general, so I'm not going to discuss basically which brand of e-bike is better or which hardware is better for the e-bike. I'm going to really just go over the generic experiences that we had since we became the e-bike owners. We ended up buying a fat tire e-bikes, and they do come very handy when you're riding on a very sandy or very very rugged trails that the regular bike owners just can't. It does get a little tough for the sand, even though the e-bike, but with the fat tire, it would actually help you to go on the beach or go into those terrains that wouldn't be accessible by regular bikes. As you can tell here, see everybody else is kind of stuck. Now, riding the e-bike is slightly different than riding the regular bicycle. You can go for a lot longer distances. You can actually tackle those hills that you couldn't conquer before, because you could use an assist, which puts a lot less pressure on you. You can actually go up a lot easier, but you still working out and you still getting exercises. But one thing with that power becomes responsibility, was have to be mindful of your surroundings. Make sure you signal when you pass in people or other bicyclists. You have to be mindful of the signs, just like the one you see here. So sometimes you have to dismount off your bike and walk, and most of the time it's on the crosswalks or broad walks, but there's other areas too. Fat tire bikes tend to be a little heavier than regular bikes, so a lot of them actually have the assist, which could help you walk it or take it up the stairs. Now, one word of advice, if it is your first ride on the bike, I would definitely suggest some empty space or empty parking lot, just to get yourself acclimated and just get used to being on the bike. Now, there are a lot of different places you can actually go ride your bicycle at, but I would say one of my most favorites is Council Park by Lloyd Harbor. It has kind of both paved roads and trails you can actually take on your bicycle. And there's so many nice nature scenes, and there's also a mansion you can actually go to. There's a lake, there's a coastal area. You can't ride on the beach, but you can now also just ride out to the beach and just enjoy the scenery.
So where we go now? Second turn.
I know a lot of people suggest using the shared bike path for beginner bikers. It works. It might as well work for a lot of people, for some people. But I know what worked for me the best was the empty parking lot. I haven't biked since I was 13, and this was really like my, I guess, first time in a while. I mean, I've biked here and there, but it wasn't like, I've never went for like a long period of time, for long distances. So the parking lot itself was actually a great way for me to get started again and just feel my balances again and get that muscle memory back to basically learn how to bike again. And it happened pretty quickly. I'd say within 5 to 10 minutes I was feeling great, and I had all the balance. I was maneuvering the bike pretty well. But I think in the beginning you do want that empty space where there'll be no traffic, no distractions. It's just you and the bicycle, just trying to get yourself acclimated and just get used to it. Now, to choose the right bike for you, there are many factors you have to look into, and honestly, you have to do your research, because I knew people who actually just bought the bikes just based on what they kind of saw online, and they felt like this is going to be the best fit for them, and unfortunately did not really work out for them. And they still have the bikes, but they're not as happy with it. Like personally, we chose the fat tire 26-inch bikes, and for reason being is the 26-inch wheels will help you on those more like black diamond terrains or like trails that you can you couldn't take the 20-inch bike, 20-inch wheel bike to. I think the 20-inch will probably is so much easier to get in and out of. Like it was very easy to maneuver. They could probably fit easily in the back of most of the cars. When 26-inch a lot larger, so you do need more space. I would say it's an SUV. Like we actually were able to fit 2 of those folding bikes into a Toyota RAV4. So they do have, and another thing I guess too you want to look at is the folding bikes. Now, if you have a big SUV or you have a lot of space at home, then you probably wouldn't care if they're folding or not, because they tend to be a little more expensive, the folding bikes. But one thing about folding bikes, you can fold them and they fit in, like our 26-inch fat tires fit in the regular closet, so you don't have to take up a lot of space in your house to store them. We have 2 bikes actually in the closet. Another thing, when you're actually traveling, you can fit them in the back of the car of mid-size SUV. In our case, it's the 2019 Subaru Forester Sport. One word of advice when you're actually looking at the website or you're going to your local bike shop, get the dimensions of the bicycle and measure your potential, the car you're going to transport the bikes with, and of course your storage, where you're going to store the bikes in, just to make sure that you'll be able to fit those bikes in there, and give it a plus minus couple inches just in case. So you have, I would say minus. I would say that's just to make sure you just try to be a little under what your maximum limit is, and that would probably help you determine which bike you want to get. Because this if you can't transport this in your regular car, then of course the other option is the bike rack. Bike racks definitely came a long way, and there's so many options out there now. But one thing is, unless you take it off, let's say if you have the one thing, if you have one on top of your car, then you have to reach out and take the bike down. Or if you have one in the back on your trail hitch, like on the back of your car, then when you don't transport your bikes, when you go shopping, you have to push the rack out of the way to get to your trunk, which might be a little of a hassle. But again, I know people who use them and they love them, so it really depends on your personal choice. Now, next thing you want to look at is, honestly, I think the most important thing you probably want to wait in is buying it from a store versus getting it online. One thing, we got our bikes from Amazon, so when the bike comes in nicely packaged, there's a lot of instructions in, but you have to assemble a lot of things yourself, which you kind of become your own mechanic, which we actually had a great time with. But if you want to have less of that assembly and more of also protection too, because if you get it from a regular bike shop, a lot of them offer like protection plans, and the best part is the bike comes in already all adjusted and tuned up, so it really just you just take it and go pretty much. But a lot of times they all tend to be a little more expensive than local bike shops. So they're really pros and cons from both of them, purchasing online and getting them from the bike store. But you have to see what works the best for you, honestly. Now, another thing we looked into while shopping for one of the bikes, we actually looked into hub motor versus the mid-range motor. And the biggest difference with those motors is the mid-range actually feels a lot more natural to pedal when you get on the bike versus the hub motor, because the motor is actually right where your pedals are in the middle, versus the hub motor which is in the back. But in contrast, the hub motor seems to be more performant and a lot easier to maintain, because the mid-range motors have actually use the crankset and then use the chain to propel the motion. There are a lot more maintenance involved, and there's a lot more wear and tear on the chain and of course the gears itself inside the motor. So, but then again, the pros is that it's a lot more natural range of motion. That's like most people I spoke to. That's what they kind of experienced using the mid-range motor. The next thing we looked into was the actual how powerful the motor was. So we look. There are different options right now in the market. At least we've seen is 250, 500, and 750. So 750 is the top, I guess, the most legal one here in New York. You can't go above 750 at this point. So if you're in a different state, you might have different laws. But honestly, the 750 motor, if you are trying to exercise, is more than enough. Because I mean, I know people who own 500, and they actually said it's more than enough as well. But we picked the 750 just in case if we need some extra power to get back, or some just in an event that we need to use just the motor by itself. We're going very steep hills, very like rugged terrains or hills, and that seems to work pretty well so far. Now the battery range on our particular model is about 30 miles, plainly on battery, because this particular bike that we have, it actually does almost self-charge when you're pedaling, when you're actually either pedaling the bike, you're physically using the paddle, the cranks, or you are going down the hill, so it seems to charge itself a little bit better. If you are using the assist, honestly, you could go. We've had it pretty much probably a 20-mile range and only used about maybe 30% of the power. So it really depends how much you're using the battery itself. It could definitely go for 30 miles, at least with our bikes. I know some people complain that certain bikes don't go as long as they advertise on solely electric. And of course it varies if you have in a very hilly terrain, if you're trying to go into like sandy roads or rocky roads. So it will vary the distance you can go. I think when they rate them, they're probably looking at a regular paved road, a commuter flat road that doesn't have a lot of hills, and that's what they tell you, like 30 miles an hour. So it's one thing to be mindful, because you don't want to be stuck out there. You want to test out the ranges before you go on a very long trip to make sure that you could actually go for that long distance. And honestly, another thing, if you're like around town commuter, see if you can find a spot for yourself to charge it, just in case you get stuck somewhere. If there's a local coffee shop or another area where you can actually plug in and bring your power supply, of course, to charge in case you need to. Now, another word of advice, if you're going to be going a lot of rugged terrains, I would definitely bring the tools, because sometimes when you hit a lot of rocks or a lot of tree roots, parts could become loose. So you can always want to be able to tighten things up and just to kind of adjust things if you have to. It doesn't happen all the time. A lot of bikes, I've seen them pretty well built, but just in case, because you don't want to be stuck out there with a loose steering wheel or something like that. So just something I kind of learned myself going more advanced terrains, I guess you could say. So those are our first experience, I guess first year experience. We had those bikes about a year off e-biking, and I definitely think they are a little on the pricier side, but if you're comparing them to some other more advanced bicycles, mountain bikes, or sports bike you can buy, they're actually not that bad, and you don't have to get the most expensive one to really have fun, honestly. And again, it comes down to depends what you're going to use the bike for. Even with the fat tire, if you go in the really soft sand, it's not that easy. You might have trouble, you might get stuck. But if you go into more packed sand, like after the storm or after the high tide, it's a lot easier to ride on, and you're going to have more fun on it. And if you don't need a bike that will go in the rugged terrains, you can just get one of those basic commuter bikes, like the 20-inch wheels, and that will be a lot of fun as well. Just getting around town and maybe riding to the beach, just on like a paved road. But if you do want to get something more advanced with basically more off-road capabilities, then it might be a little more pricey, but still, I think it's worth the money. It's a great workout. It's a good way to get around. It's a good way to get to places which you can't really get to just on a regular bike, because you at some point just run out of power. You just can't pedal anymore. So the e-bike will actually help you go a lot further, and it's there for you if you need help, if you need some assistance going up those very challenging hills or going to more challenging terrains. And I hope you enjoy this video. Again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll try to give some more updates as we enjoy our e-bikes more. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.